Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my Vincent Price marathon. And with this is the first of a series of films that started in 1960, known as the Corman Poe cycle. And that is with The Fall of the House of Usher, which originally it was released, and even in the opening credits it's called House of Usher. But the original story by Edgar Allan Poe is called Fall of the House of Usher. This is not the first film to be based on the short story. There was two films in 1928, American and French. There was another popular one in 1950, and then there would be another one in 2005 or 6. But I believe this is the more popular one. And yeah, this is a 2-pack with the next film in the cycle, Pit and the Pendulum, even though that says The Pit and the Pendulum. Of course, these films are all directed by cult master Roger Corman, who has directed many films and has produced hundreds. Even today, still produces films. By this time, I think he had already done like Little Shop of Horrors and The Terror. Could be wrong on that, but he was actually like a starving director, and he wanted to do, an Edgar Allan Poe story, and this one proved to be quite successful. That American International Pictures decided to do pretty much a whole series. And the series goes as follows. I believe there was 8 films. I do have all of them. There's House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, Premature Burial, which does not have Vincent Price, but the rest do. Tales of Terror, The Raven with Price, Karloff, and Peter Lorre. The Haunted Palace, which is actually based on a Lovecraft story, but it takes its name from Edgar Allan Poe. Mask of the Red Death, which is also mixed with the story Hop Frog, also by Poe. And the Tomb of Ligeia. The Terror often gets mixed in, but that's not based off of anything. So 8 films between 1960 and 1964. All of 7 of the 8 have a Vincent Price, and it's a great collection. I'm glad to have all of them, and I'll be going through them starting with this film. So Fall of the House of Usher came out in 1960, and they set out to make a really faithful adaptation of the Poe story. Initially, it wasn't quite that well received. It doesn't really have a gothic atmosphere. It has a decent atmosphere, but not quite the Poe's style. In recent years, it's been more favorable. It has a 90 on Rotten Tomatoes. It was preserved into the National Film Registry in 2005. And there's different versions that exist on DVD that range between 76 and 80 minutes. The one I have is 80, so... But, it also stars Mark Damon, Myrna Fahey, and Harry of Ellerby. And of course, it opens up with a man named Philip Winthrop going to the house of Usher, which is this desolate, almost rundown mansion out in the woods surrounded by a murky swamp, to see his fiancee Madeline Usher, played by Mira Fahey. But when he gets there, it's just her brother Roderick, played by Vincent Price, which in this film he has no mustache and like of Eminem bleach blonde hair. But I mean, his performance is still top notch, like always. And Price keeps trying to get Winthrop to leave. We keep telling him that he's not going to leave without seeing his fiance, but initially Price tells him the Usher family there's pretty much this curse where each succeeding member in the bloodline is afflicted with some sort of insanity. And he believes it's caused by the mansion itself, and that the mansion is so tainted that it's even caused the surrounding areas to pretty much become depressed. And we do get flashbacks of like a beautiful countryside that, no, in the beginning of the film we saw it's a depressed woods with a swamp. And he sees that he believes future generations will be driven even more mad if his sister is to become married. But Philip stays, and he becomes more and more desperate to find her and take her away. And then there's a heated argument between he eventually sees Madeline. He keeps trying to take her away. Then there's a heated argument between Roderick and Madeline, where she falls into catalepsy, which is kind of like catatonia, but it's when your muscles are all rigid and stiff. It almost acts like it pretty much acts like a rigor mortis. You appear dead and stiff. But Roderick knows that she's still alive, and convinces her fiance that she's dead, and rushes to have her entombed into the family crypt. But this is when Winthrop is about to leave, that the house butler, what was his name? Bristol, played by Harry Ellerby. He slips that she's still alive. So Philip goes down there, rips open her coffin, finds it empty, and he continues to search for her down through the labyrinth of a crypt in the house of Usher, and eventually collapses. But then we see Madeline inside her sealed coffin, and she goes insane from being buried alive and breaks free. And then we get the confrontation between her and Roderick, and she attacks him, and she pretty much beats him to death. But then the house, we already see that the house has already been caught on fire. Because the fireplace spits coals, so that's already happened. But all the members of the house are trapped inside, and the fire consumes them, it, except for Philip. And he watches the house sink into the swamp. And then, but this ends the Usher storyline. Hence, which I actually like the name of the short story, Follow the House of Usher, better than just House of Usher. Which, I mean, even on this DVD it says Follow the House of Usher, but the original poster and the opening credits just say House of Usher. But then it ends with words from the story being told. And the deep and dank tarn closed sullenly and silently over the fragments of the House of Usher. I thought this was a good movie. You know, I'm a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, he's one of my favorite writers next to Lovecraft. The film didn't quite capture the gothic atmosphere that you would expect. It certainly does feel... It feels like that period, but, you know, like those weird, like, round collars that rich people wore. It feels more vibrant than you would expect from, like, a Poe story. Not all the acting is top-notch, but, of course, Vincent Price makes the film. He really does. But I like the direction of Roger Corman. You know, I really like the that's what I was trying to find. Establishing shots, great matte paintings. I love the look of the murky swamp and like the flashbacks of how the beautiful countryside that it used to be. I've seen bits and pieces of the older film from 1950. I would definitely say this is the more superior one. And from what I've heard, like for the rest of the Corman Poe cycle, like the more films that go on, the better they get. Like especially like I think I heard The Pit and the Pendulum is the best one. It was, and I do like these midnight movies, double features. All of my Corman Poe films are in these double packs from Midnight Movies. I actually had 2 copies of Pit and the Pendulum. But you get these fun facts on the back. Like, this was made for $200,000. Which that's another thing. Even for back then, $200,000 was actually quite cheap. It looks like they really utilized their budget. It doesn't feel as low budget as it is. Especially by Corman standards. But it scored among the top 5 of the box office in 1960. Kind of a short review, but you know, I still really enjoyed it. You know, we really got to see in these films, maybe not all of them, but we really get to see Vincent Price's sinister side, and I really enjoyed it. It's easy to see because I have seen Little Shop of Horrors. I have seen The Terror. It's easy to see how this is the film that really jump-started not only Roger Corman's career, well, not jump-started, but really helped it take off, and American International Pictures. I mean, this was pretty much their Nightmare on Elm Street. Like what Elm Street did for New Line Cinema. It's kind of like what House of Usher did. But, you know, even though it didn't capture the gothic atmosphere or mood of Edgar Allan Poe, I would say, Corman and AIP and Vincent Price were the perfect people at the perfect time to do Edgar Allan Poe stories. And I think this was a great place to start. But next I will be doing Pit and the Pendulum, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe, because I do have the whole Corman Poe cycle, and I'm just going to be going through those. But anyway, that is House of Usher, aka Mystery of the House of Usher, or my favorite title, and the one of the original short story, The Fall of the House of Usher. Thank you for watching.